This is Mongolian Mindset, and today we're going to be responding to one of our subscribers, Zen Wellman. Can you do Tucker Carlson? Bro, Tucker Carlson, he's been in the news a lot lately, so that is an interesting one for us to follow. Interested to see what he has. Yeah. But the monkeys over at Personality Database, we don't think highly of them, have Tucker Carlson as an ENTP, okay? So let's go over to the chart. ENTPs, okay? ENTPs are initiating, they're informative, they're pragmatic, they're abstract, they're systematic, they're TIFE, and they're SINE, okay? That's what they are, okay? So we're going to be looking for that. And if we don't see that, we'll just call it out, man. But let's get into this video. And you guys know that every time Mongolian Mindset drops a video, we send a motherfucker to the psychiatric ward. We got motherfuckers over there eating ice cream. We got motherfuckers eating donuts. Every time we drop a video, they eating. They getting fat as hell. You can see it in their face. But like we said, we are still doing free typing sessions with us. All you have to do is join our group, our Facebook group, and message our moderator Cody with your availability. In the future, we're going to be working on a app, calendar.com or whatnot, to get that more efficient or whatnot. In the future, we are going to stop doing the typing sessions because I need to make content breaking down the entire personality types as a whole. I believe that's the future for us. So I need time to take that apart. And doing the typing session does take quite a bit of time. If we're doing some Friday, we're doing some Saturday. So I really want to get into that. And you guys know we're going to use Linda Barrens Metrics, Interaction Styles, and Temperaments. Pick up these books. These are two you want to pick up. And combination with Cognitive Functions. And I highly recommend you guys pick up Dario Nardi's work, man. Dario Nardi's the man. Pick up this book, Magic Diamond. I believe it's $1 million book. I wouldn't say it if I thought otherwise. So let's get into Tucker, man. I'm going to be breaking his ass down hardcore.
To have you on the show. I've never really got to sit down with you and talk to
you. All right, comment below what you think Tucker is, and please subscribe because that helps us grow the group, that helps us grow the brand, and we're all about reinvesting into the group.
You had a chance to get to know you, so I'm really excited to just spend 40 minutes together, and I think ask you all the things that everybody wants to ask you.
Like, why don't you go away?
I feel like Tucker he initiated that. Why don't you go away? I'm gonna put that out for initiating with Tucker there. Why don't you go away? Let's go back.
40 minutes together, and I think ask you all the things that everybody wants to ask you.
See?
Like, why don't you go away?
See? I'm gonna put that for initiating.
Close. Instead, I'm going to ask you, I want to start with this. I want to ask you a question that I think almost every one of your haters and every one of your critics would like to ask. And I think, interestingly, a great amount of your fans would actually like to ask as well. And that is this. What happened to you?
Well, I got to be 53, and I
got to be 53.
I've been in this business my whole life, and I have a very clear memory of the country that I grew up in.
Clear memory of the country that I grew up in, that's SI. So, we're going to knock them down for that SINE right there.
And I really liked it. I always liked the United States, and I watched it change, and I watched in those changes a lot of my preconceptions.
I watched this, I watched that. That's SI some more, not SE. Sorry about that. SI. He's coming off like an SI user.
Get debunked, and so I changed my opinions along with the changing evidence, which I thought was what you're supposed to do.
Change my opinion off of the changing evidence. So it doesn't look like that Tucker has a very what I want to call static mindset. Okay, he changes his mind based off the information. I'm gonna say that's some NE approach there, because you can meet a lot of people who are very stuck into what they know, but Tucker's like, well, there's new information out here. I'm gonna use my NE and I'm gonna draw a new conclusion. So we're gonna put that down for that. That's our NE again.
I'm not I am embarrassed about how wrong I was about a number of different things, but I'm certainly not embarrassed to have changed my mind. What would be embarrassing?
All right, so when he's talking about being embarrassed here, usually being embarrassed is a FI type of thing, but Tucker is saying that to me it seems like he's coming off as I feel guilty about what I thought before. Okay, so I'm putting down for TIFE there.
Is if in the face of a mountain of evidence that you were wrong, you resisted admitting it and changing course. So for me, the Iraq War was definitely a
changing course. That's more of a progression mindset. Okay. And with amount of evidence he wants to tell the truth, that's more of a TI approach. Like some people a lot of T users can save face. Like people don't realize that, yeah. But the people that really hunt the truth are usually TI users.
A pivot point. I was in television then. That was 19 years ago, and I was cheering it on. Basically, in effect, I actually had reservations. Even the worst part, in fact, is that I had gut level reservations. I never understood the connection between Saddam Hussein and 9/11.
I never understood the connection between Saddam Hussein and that's TI. Never understood the connection between 9/11 and Saddam. So that's a TI approach and an NE approach.
I assumed that the CIA and the various intel agencies of other countries, our allies, Great Britain, France, were correct in saying that Saddam had WMD, but I never exactly understood why it would be a good idea to invade Iraq. But
why TI?
I effectively, passively went along with it, and then I went to Iraq in December of 2003, the day, in fact, Saddam was captured in Tikrit, and I watched the place fall apart, and along with it, a lot of my previous assumptions.
So, progression. Again, I watched this, and that's SINE. So, Tucker Carlson is an SINE user. So, that eliminates all the SE users off the bat. He's an SINE user, so that's usually going to be ESTJs, ESFJs, ENTP, ENFP, ISTJ, ISFJ, INTP, and INFP. Okay, those are the types we're looking at. Those are the 8 types we're looking at because Tucker Carlson is an SINE user. He refers to the past, and he's okay with making any predictions. He's okay with looking at the connections or whatnot, the consequences, that type of thing. So he's an SIN user. He refers to himself in the past, present. So yeah, those SE types are eliminated.
And I came back and I admitted I was completely wrong. I'm ashamed. I've been ashamed ever since. And what was so striking about that whole process was how few people
the process. I'm gonna say that's systematic. He's talking about the process here. Okay, systematic. Let's talk about the system.
To say the same thing. They were like, when I went to Iraq in December of 2003, the day Saddam was captured.
So I had a personal experience.
And
SI.
I watched the place fall apart. And
I watched the place go apart. SI.
Previous assumptions, and I came back and I admitted I was completely
wrong.
Came back.
I've
been ashamed ever since.
I've been ashamed.
And what was so striking about that whole process was how few people were willing to say the same thing. They were like, "No, it's a good idea." In the face of really overwhelming evidence that the United States got nothing out of it.
All right, so overwhelming evidence. So then they're not using the truth. Okay, let's TI again. Okay. With that being said, him being a TIFE user, that eliminates ESTJ, ISTJ, and INFP, and ENFP. Okay, so we're looking at a ESFJ, ENTP, ISFJ, and INTP. Okay, he's one of those 4.
And after that, I just thought, I don't know what this is, but I'm against it. I don't think you should lie.
I don't think you should lie. That's a TI approach.
But you should never intentionally lie. And I watch people like David Frum and Bill Crystal, people I worked with and respected, who are very smart, for sure, both of them, decide to say things they knew weren't true.
Wasn't true. That's a TI approach again.
And I can't guess at their motive. And
I can't guess at their motive, so I'm not motive based, so I can't guess at their motive. Systematic again.
And I still do. So that was.
And I still do. See, he's still trying to guess at the motive of what they were doing.
Break with the conventional view of things.
Conventional. He's going against the conventional view of things, so that's going to be a pragmatic, because pragmatic is rebellious, contrarian, essentially. That's what he's talking about right there. I'm not going what everybody else is saying. I'm going with truth lies.
Giving someone a compliment is always a dangerous proposition, because probably more often than not, compliments are meant for some other purpose.
That's for sure.
Make that
beware flattery.
He just initiated right there. Be aware of flattery.
Definitely.
Exactly, to make that person like you, whatever it may be.
I mean,
but I'm going to give you a compliment that I think is totally devoid of any proposition, because probably more often than not, compliments are meant for some other purpose.
See, he initiated.
Make that
beware flattery. Definitely.
Be aware of flattery.
To make that person like you, whatever it may be. But I'm going to give you a compliment that I think is totally devoid of any ulterior motive, and honestly also devoid of emotion. I said this. I think I'd like to be able to step outside myself and observe myself somewhat objectively, if not objectively self-aware, and say, look, I was at ESPN and I had not yet joined Fox, and I was asked, who would you like to have dinner with? Name your 3 people. And you were one of the 3 people. And the reason for that, Tucker, has to do with whatever this transformation is that you've gone through over some period of time. You just described a much longer period of time than the one that I've observed. Of course, I've known who you are for a long time. But your transition, here's the compliment, I think obviously led the country, led a lot of people, and I would say in a lot of ways led me in seeing America through what I think is a more populist lens. I would have probably 10 years ago, Tucker, really recoiled at the idea of populism. I would have associated it with mob
mentality.
You
just initiated there? Yeah, me too.
But listening to you when I wasn't yet at Fox, and you're not the only person, but you are one of the primary people who helped guide, I think, me in a different direction than I was 10 years ago, 15 years ago, maybe even 5 years ago. But I'm curious, where would you say you are today? Like, if you had to put a name or a brand on it. You just described a Tucker that was probably pretty neoconservative at one time. I know you were pretty libertarian at one point. What are you now?
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, no one would ever believe me, since
no one would ever believe me. That's a TE approach.
I think a conventional view is I'm radical, but I feel and have always felt very moderate. I'm definitely not in favor of destroying things. I really see the world as binary at this point. There are people who create and nurture, and there are those who deface and destroy. It's really there are only 2 varieties of people. It's dualism, and I want to be on the side that creates and nurtures. That
creates and nurtures. That's an NE approach, and that's an FE approach. Create and nurture
things, that leaves things for future generations. That sounds high-minded, but
future really generations, that's abstract.
Believe it. And so I don't like any political movement that begins with, hey, let's wreck everything we have and build something brand new, because I just don't believe in that. It doesn't actually work. I like to read. I'm interested in history. Virtually every revolution, with the exception really of ours, has taken the society backward, whatever society is, whether it's France or Great Britain.
So he's coming from an SI there. Okay.
The Soviet Union, Russia in 1917, China in 1949, et cetera, et cetera. And so, I feel very moderate. And by the way, I'm not much of a populist either. I mean, people are hierarchical. I have 4
people
dogs.
Are hierarchical, a systematic, or TE approach.
animals are hierarchical. It's just built into our nature. We have a small number of leaders. We look to them for direction. That's not weird. That's just how we're born. So you're always going to have a ruling class. The question is it an impressive ruling class? Are they smart people? Do they have self-restraint? Do they have wisdom? Are they thinking past, the next 20 days? Or are they...
So he's talking about people
greedy?
betting on the future, and they're not doing that. So he's commenting on that. And the thing about NTs is that they really care about you being compliant with your information, you taking your knowledge to mastery level. They really can't deal with somebody who doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about, who can't do what the fuck they're talking about. It's a very triggering thing for INTJ, ENTJ, INTP, or ENTP. If you don't know what the fuck you're talking about, we have a problem with you.
Day traders, and we just have wound up for a bunch of different reasons with a really bad ruling class. I'm not against ruling classes at all. Every society has one, but ours are just unimaginably bad, and I think that we should be
unimaginably bad. He's critiquing the system that we have now. It's a systematic game. You guys know, if you follow us, you know what type critique systems all the time. I don't even need to talk about it. You guys know. We already know who type critiques them. My older brother, he's an ENTP. He literally always critiques systems. Always. From a negative point of view. And you know what he is? ENTP. And that's what we're going at right now.
How did the system that we built up over generations...
How did the system... Systematic again. So with him being systematic, that keeps both of them alive. ESFJ, ISFJ, ENTP, and INTP still alive because they're systematic.
Create these people. Where you graduate Yale Law School or go on to McKinsey, and then you wind up with attitudes that hurt the country you're supposed to be leading. Like, how did that happen? No one else seems to be interested. I'm very interested. I grew up in La Jolla and Georgetown, so it's not like I'm the son of a coal miner.
So you take this first person perspective, that's SI?
I grew up in a world full of rich, well-educated people. I left that world a few years ago on purpose because I could no longer stand it. But it's not.
I can no longer stand those people. That's pragmatic.
I'm like in my heart a farmer. No, in my heart I grew up a rich kid and I read books and I just don't like the people currently in charge. I think they're awful.
I don't like the people that's currently in charge, and I think they're awful. Pragmatic.
And I know them, so I would know. I spent 35 years in Washington.
I know them. I would know. That's a SI approach, and a TI approach.
To 2020. So I'm not kind of guessing about what they're like. I know them personally.
I know them personally. That's TI.
And they couldn't be less suited to leadership. And I'm just mad about it. I mean, why wouldn't I be mad about it?
Pragmatic again.
Look at the effects.
Look at the effects. FX is NE.
The thing, as for populism, my views are very simple. All my views are simple. I don't have complicated views really about anything. But if you're running a country that purports to be a representative democracy, you should serve the majority of people. I mean, in some way, if you wake up one morning, the life expectancy is declining, you've really gone off track.
So he's giving a lot of extra information. He's informative. He's informed, obviously, but ESFJ, ENTP, ISFJ, and INTP are both informative. So Tucker Carlson, he's giving a lot of extra information. He's informative, ladies and gentlemen.
Replacing the population through native-born birth rates, that's a red flag. That's a siren. That's an emergency. And if you ignore it, then you suck, and you deserve to be replaced.
Then you suck. He's pragmatic. We're getting ESFJ, ISFJ out of here. He's either ENTP or INTP. Tucker Carlson is either ENTP or INTP. What we notice from them is progression is ENTP, initiating is ENTP, outcome is INTP, and responding. Okay, so what we have right now, we have 2 points for progression, and we have 3 points for initiating. So it's looking like Tucker Carlson is an ENTP.
That's kind of how I feel. It's not more complicated than that.
It's so interesting you describe some of your background, that you're from La Jolla. So, a lot of people, I think, again, probably best voiced by your critics, say, okay, how did this guy become the voice of the forgotten man? How did this guy become the voice of populism?
So what happens to ENT?
And what I hear you telling me is,
does that seem like happen to ENTPs all the time? The forgotten man, Andrew Tate. I need to talk about Andrew Tate. How he's the voice for forgotten men. Okay. Malcolm X. Like, oh my God, these ENTPs just step up and talk for the forgotten man. Adolf Hitler.
it's the way that you have, not by calculation, not by any. And that's what you will be accused of. By the way, I feel like I get a lot of the same criticism, just in small doses compared to the heaping doses that you get. But what you're saying is that you arrive at this place because you have inside knowledge, in essence, of those that would be the ruling class and know how feckless and empty and incompetent that class is.
Right. That's it. I mean,
Initiating.
dishonest people always impute dishonest motives to other people. It's like philanderers always assume everyone else
If this,
is
then that. That's supposed to be just used with dishonesty. If this, then that. Go back, check it out. That's if this, then that.
Knowledge, in essence, of those that would be the ruling class and know how feckless and empty and incompetent that class is.
Right. That's it. I mean, dishonest people always impute dishonest motives to other people. It's like philanderers always assume everyone else is cheating on his wife. That's just the way they are. You know, I've got a lot of faults. I'm not that dishonest, actually. And I just kind of say what I think. Why wouldn't I? I'm 53.
I just say what I think. That's TI approach.
Advantage in lying. I don't. If I can help it, I mean, I guess if you caught me doing something bad, I would lie about it. But in general, I try not to lie. My motives are super straightforward. And I don't hear much criticism about myself because I'm pretty cut off. But to the extent I hear it, it's like, oh, no, he's doing this for money. No, I've never been a money guy.
I've never been a money guy, so that means he's not interested. He's systematic.
You know, at all. I mean, I remember my producer telling me last summer I was out.
I remember my producer telling me, that's SI.
There are all these stories about how you're secretly vaxxed and you're casting aspersions on the COVID vaccine because you don't want your audience to get the vaccine or whatever. I said, why would people assume if I'm worried about the vaccine that I was secretly I'm not vaxxed, never have been vaxxed. I'm not mad at people who have been vaxxed, but like the idea that I would lie about, why would I lie about that? I would never lie about that. It only liars imagine everyone else is lying. And it really
if this,
does
then
help
that. TI approach again.
A lot about the people making those criticisms. I mean, my faults and shortcomings and weaknesses are super obvious. I'm on TV 5 hours a week. So if I, have dumb opinions or, if I eat too many cookies and gain 30 pounds, which I tend to do, everyone knows. Like, I'm not hiding anything. You know what I mean? Like, why would I? I don't. And so the idea that, like, I'm some trust fund kid who decided that he could make more money pretending to be a car mechanic or something, it's like, it's insane. I didn't grow up in rural middle America. I never pretended I did. I just think it's really this simple. I actually like rural areas because I hunt and fish and I like the people. I live in one. But really it's as simple as the people in charge are bad at their jobs. That's demonstrable. We know that from the results. I'm not just attacking people's characters or saying
that's just straight up TI fact. The people in job are trash.
I don't like having dinner
Pragmatic.
with them, saying they're not good at what they do. And by every measure, and they shouldn't be in charge. It's really that simple. I'm not saying that we should
They shouldn't be in charge. So that's going against the affiliative. So pragmatic.
Turn out the entire federal bureaucracy and give it to people who work at Napa Auto Parts. I don't know. But people who are good at leading the country should be leading the country. We don't have those people. So that's a huge problem.
So I do come from that rural middle America place. Yes. And by the way, I arrive at this point of embracing a sense of populism more by aspired to achieve away from my upbringing, as a lot of small town kids do. I want to make my way to the big city. And what I found, Tucker, once I made it, in this case, whether it was New York City or corporate America of ESPN. What I just found once I got there was these were not more sophisticated individuals interested in high-level debates. These were not people that somehow had any semblance of value. In fact, they had much less a semblance of value than the places and the people where I came from. And there is something about where I came from that is deeply in touch with what it is to be an American, what it is to be a valuable member of society. And not only have that person been forgotten, not only is that person the forgotten man, but that person is reviled. And yes. What is esteemed and held up as virtue now is the opposite of what I at least grew up and what I've always honored as being what it is to be a man or an American or to be a Christian or to just be an honorable
I can't peg him out, but he sounds like a STJ, NTJ, that guy there, STJ, NTJ.
Member of society. Once I got to the Upper West Side, I was disavowed of any of that and ready to go back to Sherman, Texas.
It's totally right.
So it sounds like he wants to go back to what was comfortable for him. So that'd be SI. So you look at this guy look like an STJ.
I mean, I think you're absolutely right that the people in charge hate Middle America, and you have to ask yourself why. And the answer is
to ask yourself why. That's TI.
America. They failed middle class America, which is no longer the majority of the country. That's this happened in I think 2015 during the Obama presidency when the middle class became less than the majority of America. So it's no longer a middle class country. That's a huge problem. And they did that by their bad policies, a bunch of them. I mean, I'm not, what
consequences, they are, but any bad policies.
The truth is, you hate.
Truth is, TI.
If you commit an offense against someone, if you sin against someone, you end up hating that person, and that's really why. And so they invert it all. I mean, the most powerless and reviled people in America are rural people. Obviously, there's no, they can't get into Stanford, no matter what their SAT scores are. No one is putting the thumb on the scale for them. But you watch television and they tell you, the most, underserved, the most marginalized communities are trans people in cities. Really? There's no more privileged group than a trans person in the city. They're
fact. TI fact. What's the fact, man?
1/100% of the population, we spend 30% of our time talking about them. There is, every possible, the Justice Department, you criticize them and they're like at your door with guns. It's like everything that they describe as
progression. This guy's progression. This guy is pragmatic. He's no one's safe with Tucker.
The opposite of the
if he finds you ineffective, he's coming at you.
Most of us live with that at a certain point you just completely devalue your credibility, and I don't believe anything you say because everything you say is a freaking lie. Not only a lie.
Everything you say is a freaking lie.
Version of the truth. It's the precise opposite of the truth. And I'm sorry to rant, but that's where we are.
Sorry to rant. Informative. Thank you for being informative, Tucker. We love you being informative, man. And you pointed out for us in the crowd. We love you, Tucker. Just do your job, Tucker. Let's go back and get you saying that.
1% of the population, we spend 30% of our time talking about them. There is, every possible, the Justice Department, you criticize them and they're like at your door with guns. It's like everything that they describe is the opposite of the reality the rest of us live with, that at a certain point you just completely devalue your credibility, and I don't believe anything you say. Because everything you say is a freaking lie. Not only a lie, it's an inversion of the truth. It's the precise opposite of the truth. And I'm sorry to rant, but that's where we are.
Sorry to rant. Good job, Tucker.
I'm always happy to hear a Tucker Carlson rant. You said something earlier, and I've heard you say it before, and it's an interesting thing that you say here, and you're either a wonderful Machiavellian or you are truly honest, and that is that you acknowledge that you have the capability and will at times lie. There are some that go, oh, gotcha, Tucker admits he lies. I mean, who can honestly look into a camera or another person's eyes or a mirror and say, I never tell a lie? We aspire. It's like objectivity in media. You can aspire to it, but you have no permanent position occupying objectivity.
That's right. That's right. T.I. I'm going to let you slide with that, T.I.
Your willingness to say, look, man, I hope I don't lie. If I'm cornered and I'm in a desperate situation, I'm sure like many flawed human beings, I will lie, is to me evidence of your honesty. Or you are just like a next level Machiavellian at all times.
I'm too old, but here's what I want to ask
Initiate. I'm too old. That's 5. And that was 4 on progression. So he's an ENTP. Well, let's hear Tucker out a little bit more.
Oh, no, of course. I mean, I don't know what I'm supposed to say. I would never lie.
I would never lie. T.I. He's trying to hold that T.I.
If I drank for 38 years, if I don't drink, but let's say I got drunk and slept with some random girl and got caught.
He's doing abstract. He's pulling a random scenario.
Doing it, I would probably deny it because
I don't drink. I don't do this. If I slept with some random girl, I
wouldn't want to be caught doing that because it's an awful thing to do. So of course
he's talking about an ethical perspective here. So that's FE as well. Goddamn.
I didn't even know that's held up as some example of my deep dishonesty. Whatever. I don't know. My view is you can kind of tell who's telling the truth. You can smell it. I always tell my children this.
You can smell it. I got T.I. parent. You better not walk across the. I'm telling you, we dealing with T.I. parent, or you dealing with T.I. hero, or you dealing with T.E. parent, or you dealing with T.E. hero. You better be careful how you walk across the street, because if they get a hint of you selling something that's inaccurate, they're gonna bust your ass. They're going to bust your ass. And I'm going to tell you, the ones who are the toughest on busting that ass, T.I. parent and T.E. parent. They're going to bust your ass and they don't give a fuck about it. So you best be careful. If your friends are INTJ, you better be careful with the information you say. Because if it's wrong, they're going to hit you. If your friends are ENTP or ESTP, you better be careful when you go across the street saying something that's not correct.
The main loss of modernity is of our instincts, and we're taught to ignore them. And again, I spend a lot of time with animals. I really love animals. And animals have one advantage over us. They don't have opposable thumbs or a sense of the future, but they do have a very close effect. That's all they have is their instincts. And their instincts are spot on.
Where's he talking about? Where's Tucker talking about outside sources? He's not.
He is. If you think someone's lying to you, you're right. Don't second guess it. If you perceive danger, it's real. And don't override those feelings, those instincts with your higher consciousness because you're in effect lying to yourself.
I don't like this.
Tucker, I'm going to be honest with you. Not everybody has T.I. parent, man. There's a lot of people that don't understand the truth. And that's the reason why a lot of people go from typology community trying to figure out their personality type. Because they don't have TI themselves to figure out the actual personality type.
Part of the podcast, because in the previous episode of my podcast, I, in a confessional moment, said to my audience that I fully, in all self-awareness, understand that I'm a slow burn. So your initial instinct about me may not be exactly what it is if you invest a little time in Lil Kane. But Tucker's telling everyone, run, your initial instinct is right. And one of my favorite lines of all time is going to be animals don't have opposable thumbs or a sense of the future. So let me springboard off this because you've sort of introduced it twice, and you've said this. I think you've said it on Tucker Carlson tonight, and it's absolutely true. You, interestingly, for someone who has his name in his own show and spends an hour, at least a good portion of that hour, monologuing, you do not talk about yourself a lot.
Hear that?
And I find that admirable.
You do not talk about yourself because he's a TIFE user.
And I actually find it something that lends credibility to what it is you have to say. You're not pouring everything through the first person, but people's curiosity about you remains. So what will you tell me? And I appreciate your privacy. I do. Especially for a guy who they've literally showed up at your door. the mob has literally banged on your door. What can you tell me? You said you live rural. You said you love being around animals. What is life like for Tucker Carlson on a day-to-day basis?
Well, I would just say two things about the first thing you said. I really try not to talk about myself, not because I'm paranoid about security, though I probably should be, but because I'm not from a culture where that's rewarded or encouraged at all. And it was really, really discouraged in the family that I grew up in, using the word I all the time or being a narcissist, and same with my wife and I are from the same world. So that is not something that we would encourage in our children at all. And I don't like it, and I'm also not that interesting. It's like there's this whole world out there, and I don't live a particularly fascinating life. We do live in a really rural area. We've got 4 dogs. I live with my wife. We have 4 kids. They're all gone. And we're very close to them, but they don't live with us anymore. And And they all left. They all went to boarding school when they were young. So they, we've lived alone for a while. And, I wake up, I usually sit on the front porch with my wife, have a cup of coffee, talk about stuff, or if it's cold out, it's freezing where I live right now. So we get back into bed with the dogs and drink our coffee in bed because it's cold. And then
talking about the cold,
I
whatever, that's SI.
sketch out my show in the morning. Here's who I think we should be interviewing, and here's what I think the stories are. And then I usually write on my phone
Systematic
some of the open
progression,
inchoate thoughts that I have about it. And then that's done, and it's like I feel like the show's nailed down. And then I always go out, no matter where I am, and try to be outside. Today I went. It's partridge season where I live. Rough grouse season.
I'm gonna go outside and be outside initiating. Okay, he sounds like Skip Bayless to me. He sounds like the political version of Skip Bayless. I mean, I know we have a type Skip Bayless, but I watch Skip Bayless all the time. Him and Shannon Sharp, I watch them literally all the time. And Skip Bayless is ENTP, and he sounds exactly the same. So we're done here. Tucker Carlson's the ENTP, guys. Personality database actually got this correct. That's surprising. Surprised they didn't call him ENFP or something we could have literally nailed him for. But yeah, they got him for that. Congratulations, personality database. But let's go to the chart. So what we noticed early on about Tucker Carlson was he's an SINE user. He talks about his personal experience from a first-person perspective. He remembers the past. He has no problem remembering or recanting it. He talks about connections and whatnot from an NE perspective as well. So he's an SINE user. So I eliminated 8 types for us. And we noticed clearly that Tucker Carlson is a TIFE user. So with that being said, if he's TIFE, he has his own internal logical framework. That's why he likes telling the truth. TI users is all about telling the truth. Like, they don't care about a lot of things, but they're gonna tell the truth. Like, it is what it is. I literally had a friend who was at ISTP, and I was like, bro, why don't you just fucking lie, bro? And that motherfucker just could not tell a fucking lie. I don't know what the fuck was up with him. I was like, yo, just tell a fucking lie, bro. But he's a TI user. He has his own internal logical framework. He's all about FE. So he cares about actually helping people or whatnot. So with that being said, that eliminated a couple types as ESFJ, ENTP, isfj, ENTP. Tucker Carlson, from there we noticed he was informative. Obviously, he's adding a whole bunch of extra information to whenever he talks. He has stuff like Tucker Carlson's the guy. If you were on a 1-hour tour, he would make it 2 hours because he'd be adding so much extra information. Okay, he's pragmatic, so that means he's rebellious. He doesn't really care about authority as much. He's independent. He's a contrarian. Obviously, that's part of the show for him. This is who he is. So that eliminated us down to ENTP and INTP. So the difference between them are initiating versus responding, progression versus outcome. And I mean, he said a couple outcome statements, but primarily he was progression and he was initiating. So Tucker Carlson is an ENTP, ladies and gentlemen. And this was a pleasure. And this is Mongolian Mindset, and we're out. Subscribe, ladies and gentlemen.